Hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting me. I work for the New York Civil Liberties Union. I've been doing police reform work in New York City for about 4 years now. And the New York Civil Liberties Union, as an organization, has been watching sort of the NYPD policies and practices and, bringing them to light in a lot of ways, challenging them in the courts, and trying to pass legislation and laws to change the way police interact with communities. Before I even came to the New York Civil Liberties Union, we do a lot of workshops in communities to talk to people about their rights when they have encounters with police officers. But over the last few years of doing this work, I think for people who are in the movement, we sort of see a new energy for people really wanting to seek change. Over and over again, every few years or sometimes less, there's like a really egregious police incident where they kill someone or they beat someone really bad, and everyone sort of like goes out into the streets and they're ready for action. And then we try something and we don't get it, and then we sort of go back and regroup and think about what we can do now. But something happened about 4 years ago in New York City that I think started to change things for us on the grounds here. And I know we're going to talk a lot about Ferguson and what happened there. But we're from New York City, so let's talk about New York for a second. Advocates from all across the city came together and we all sat down around the table. And for me, it was one of those moments, I've been doing organizing work for a while, where it was just like life-changing, where you had all sorts of groups, people who were like on the ground doing cop watch and doing, police monitoring, and people who were sort of in the books and the researchers and those people who were looking at policies and practices from a different angle. And then you had people and organizations like us that work on policy reform and litigation all coming to the same table to say, how can we change the way our communities are policed? The New York Civil Liberties Union has been putting out data around stop and frisk since about 2004. And every year we've seen the numbers go up and up and up, and to the point where it was, it went up 600% at its height in 2011. There were close to 700,000 stops of New Yorkers. And it's no surprise to anyone in this space that the majority of those people who are stopped are Black and Latino, right? And we've seen the same thing. And then we start to look at sort of some of the ideals around broken windows, where we see an emphasis on policing quality of life offenses, right? That's what they like to call it. But really, it just seems like an attack on the poor, where, homeless folk and people who are, in, the streets more are confronted with really aggressive law enforcement officers, and they are experiencing a type of policing that we haven't seen for, at this large scale for a long time. And so we all got together and we sat around and we said, how can we change this? What can we do? And it sort of started a multi-pronged effort where you have 65 organizations all coming together under the umbrella of Communities United for Police Reform. And we started to think about what we can do, and we came up with a bunch of policy proposals, and we came up with a whole community empowerment project where we are educating people, and we have something called a leadership development, where we train people from the community how to talk about policing, how to start cop watch teams, and how to sort of monitor what's happening in their own community. And so, we've been doing this work. We led the effort to pass the Community Safety Act. So for the first time ever, we have NYPD Inspector General, someone that's looking at police practices and saying, he actually put out a report just this month about police use of force and chokeholds in particular, and how often they're used by NYPD officers and how often there's no discipline for those officers who use them. And we passed a bill that, banned profiling by police. And I know everybody's like, profiling was already illegal. Yeah, but there was no real way to hold police accountable when they did profile. And this is for the first time we have this new measure where we can, bring police to court, bring the NYPD to court to say, you have a pattern of practice of profiling against this community, and we have the proof of that. But right, that is sort of a separate measure from sort of the mobilization and activism that has been going on in this space. So that when you have an incident like Eric Garner happened in New York City, we were much more suited to mobilize and come together and decide what we wanted to see, right? How can we make sure that there's justice for the family, but how can we make sure that there's a policing system that doesn't sort of emphasize this aggressive behavior that kills people, right? People are dying. People are dying every day at the hands of NYPD officers, and there's no accountability, and our communities are tired of it. So what can we do about it? And so we started sort of this moment, this Stops Today. If you follow Twitter, you should definitely follow This Stops Today. And it's an organization of 100 organizations right now who did 11 days of action, 11 days for every time Eric Garner said, "I can't breathe," right? And every day we were out in the streets and we were protesting and we were, marching over the Brooklyn Bridge. And, the New York Civil Liberties Union, as an organization that sort of founded on protecting protests, we actually just won a lawsuit that we litigated around the Republican National Convention, where so many people were arrested for protesting at the RNC. And, for the first time, the largest settlement ever, we were able to win that because people are tired. People are tired of seeing the same thing happen over and over again in their communities. We have a right to protest. We have a right to call out the injustice of a system that is brutalizing people. But sort of in the beginning of the This Stops Today movement, you sort of seen the NYPD take a different approach to the protesters, right? I was on the ground day after day, and I seen that they weren't making arrests. They were giving people a lot of warnings. There was this moment where it was like, please leave. Please don't stand there. I don't want to have to arrest you. And, I've been watching protests ever since, the Kamani Gray thing, where hundreds of people were arrested during those couple of weeks where people were protesting about that. And I was around a little bit earlier where they were just arresting people if you just stood out there too long with just signs. And so to see this, I was a little shocked to say, wow, they're not arresting people. I wonder what's going on here. Flash forward to the killings of the officers in Brooklyn. And now when we go out there, people are like being met with really aggressive, policing. They're like, you cannot stand there, you will get arrested, right? The cuffs, the little plastic cuffs are out right away. And so we're starting to see sort of that shift back. And I know people keep saying, well, New York is not Ferguson, but some of the tactics that we're starting to see on the ground after the killings of police officers have really shifted a bit. And you see that they are really aggressive with protesters. They're really aggressive with people who are calling out the injustice. And now is the time for us to figure out what's next, right? We're still mobilizing. The mobilizations have not stopped. People are still out in the street, and they're going to be out in the street, right? There's a trial happening on the 29th to release the transcripts of the grand jury and the Eric Garner trial, and NYCLU, along with 4 other different organizations, including the NAACP, are all petitioning the court to get those out. And so we're going to be out there again, but I just imagine what sort of pushback we're going to get. And now I think the thing that's complicated about the work that we're doing is that you have this new, sort of counter protest happening with people who are like the Blue Lives Matter, right? And people being very pro-police in this moment. And this is a moment for us not to turn away or shy away from the very important slogan of Black Lives Do Matter, right? Because these are people who are getting, arrested 4 times, more than whites for pot, when every study says that whites smoke pot at higher rates than blacks, right? We know that there's injustice in how our communities are policed, and we can't shy away from that language, right? But we see this sort of counter protest happening, and now is the time to sort of dig in our heels and decide what is next and what we're going to do next. And so organizations are still meeting. We're still thinking through what we want to see happen. There are a lot of proposals on the table. I definitely want to get into them, but I won't now because I feel like I'm coming up on the 7 minutes. And so I'm going to stop now, but I could talk about this stuff all day.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm really happy everybody came out on a kind of a not so nice Saturday. But the first thing I want to do is start off. It's a little chilly in here, so what I want to do is get everybody warmed up with a chant that we said in Ferguson, which is, I say, racism means, and you say, we've got to fight back. So racism means, you
got to fight back.
Racism means,
you got to fight back.
Racist cops mean,
you have to fight back.
Killer cops mean,
you got to fight back.
Mike Brown means,
you got to fight back.
Cayenne means?
You got to fight back.
Santo Davis means?
You got to fight back.
We've got to do what?
You got to fight back.
We've got to fight back.
You got to fight back.
We've got to fight back.
You got to fight back.
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 Thank you. All right. Now we're warm. I've never chanted at church before, so it's a little bit different. It's the first time for everything. So my name is Ryan. Yes, I teach at Kingsborough Community College. I'm a New York City paramedic. I went to Ferguson a couple of times. I guess that qualifies me the credentials to talk on this panel with my distinguished panelists, and I sit next to Anita. So some of you here remember Long Island College Hospital. I know that many members of this church, I actually recognize people in here that were involved in our struggle to keep that hospital open. I'll get back to that in a little bit. The meaning of lich, the struggles in Red Hook are actually where I cut my teeth, not just as a clinician, as a paramedic, but also learning how to fight back against racism, which is kind of the theme of what I'm talking about right now. Like I said, I'll tie that back together in the end of what I'm saying. So I went to Ferguson twice, once in October, a few days after the murder of Von Dritt Myers in the neighborhood of Shaw, which was adjacent to Ferguson. He was shot coming out of a convenience store. The police said that he had a gun. He was carrying a sandwich. And then I went again in November after Thanksgiving, after the non-indictment decisions were handed down. So the first time I went with a small crew, and the second time I went with a bigger crew, and with a lot of friends with me. And those two experiences were probably, they were the most important experiences in my life up to this point. So first, in case you didn't know it, we're all here, a lot of different people are here, it's a multiracial crowd, right? All of us have a bit of a different experience living under this system. The most important thing is that, to get out of the way, is that we live under apartheid. This is an apartheid system. That there are people here that live whose living conditions are worlds apart from others, maybe even a few blocks away. You have the Red Hook projects that are next to Park Slope. We are in Brooklyn Heights right now. If you take a walk, not even a half-hour walk down to Red Hook, you have an area where asthma, obesity, diabetes, hypertension are at epidemic rates, where child mortality is closer to parts of sub-Saharan Africa than they are compared to other countries. So you have places that are worlds apart, right here in our part of Brooklyn. So the truth is working people are under attack everywhere, but anti-black racism is a particularly vicious type of racism that black working people live with in this country, and that what's special about this and why we're here today is that Ferguson fought back. Staten Island didn't fight back after Garner. Brooklyn hasn't fought back since the numerous killings that have happened there. Wasn't the Bronx, wasn't in Brooklyn, didn't happen in San Francisco, not in LA, it happened in Ferguson. And when they fought back, they really fought back. The reasons why there are a lot of reasons why, but the point is the world watched and learned what it means to fight back like Ferguson. And that's a bit of what I want to talk about today and what that means. The meaning of Ferguson, what it meant for not just me, but what it means for all of us that are sitting here at this table and in this room. So the first time I went to Ferguson, what was kind of amazing about it was that I was embraced like a brother by everybody in that community. And I went with a small group of friends. And people came, most amazing people. And you know what I mean? The media they say a lot about outside agitators and people that are coming in, and it's not their struggle. And look at these rich people coming in. First of all, I ain't rich, but the media kind of portrays the people that are coming in solidarity in one way because they want all these struggles to be different. That's the impression that I get. So we got there when people started hugging us and were excited to see us. It was you can't believe the hype that you hear on the media, and it was a real feeling of something special was happening. We were not outside agitators. As a matter of fact, the only folks who made a big deal about me not coming from Missouri or Ferguson, or the fact that I'm white, were other outside groups who were also usually white. So it's kind of ironic in that sense, but there you go. We stood shoulder to shoulder in the neighborhood of Shaw when we marched against the police murder of Von Dritt Myers there. and we stood with our arms linked, black, white, together. A lot of food for thought about what that meant and what that means for us. And I have a really quick quotation I want to share with you from the first time that I met. This is my other, I took some notes from people that I met that were there. I met this young man who has his children. And this young man that I met with had said, I asked him he asked me why I was out here. And I said, well, it's obvious why I'm out here. We have to fight back. I mean, you have to do something. You can't sit and watch these things happen. You sit and you watch these things happen in Ferguson. You think we must do something, right? And I asked him, well, why are you out here? Why are you fighting back? And because he told us, we were talking about the media, and I told you that back home they portray everybody in Ferguson as being just kind of crazed lunatics, whatever. And these are some of the sharpest, most articulate people I have ever met. And this man had said, he was 21 years old, by the way. He had said, I'm doing this for my kids so they don't have to live like we do. When I'm 50 or 60, I want them to say, Daddy was a freedom fighter. That's what this is. We fighting for freedom. So we took a lot of pictures, showed them to my friends. So the second time when we went back after the non-indictment decision, we went back louder and stronger than before. We met a lot of friends, went door to door. When you go door to door, I'm glad that you're here talking from the Civil Liberties Union, because there were some things there that just were clearly really begged the question of what's legal and what isn't. When you go door to door there, the cops come out of nowhere and ask you what you're doing. They want to know who you are, why you're there, what are you doing, talking to people for. And then, the children, for instance, in this one area, aren't allowed to bounce balls in that area. They just weren't allowed to, right? Because the police said you can't do it, so you can't do it, right? Apartheid, right? I mean, it was insane. I came back and told people, and who believes a story like that? You have to see it for yourself. That's why we went back with an even larger crew. So the second time we went, we had this big march. They have these nightly demonstrations in front of the police station. And I remember marching down Florissant Avenue towards the Ferguson Police Department, and there were these men in you had a National Guard police, and then you had these men in camouflage with rifles up on top of roofs. And we didn't realize until afterwards that these were militias that were tied to the Ku Klux Klan. These are Klan-tied militias that were deputized by the police department to protect businesses, right, in the event. So we can have a larger discussion about legality and how legal that was, but you don't really experience things, you haven't experienced life until you have Klansmen pointing guns at you, marching down the street for having a peaceful demonstration, but I'm digressing. It was an experience that's very difficult to put into words, but when we came back, we had a lot of demonstrations. What was clear was that Ferguson moved people all over the world, and it moved people here in New York City. Many of you here, I think, were involved in demonstrations, right? What was tremendous about it, you had tens of thousands, Black, Latin, Asian, white people that were out, that were all there for a singleness of purpose, which was to unite against racism. And that's something we haven't seen, right? That's something we haven't seen in a long time. And that's something we have to build on. And that's something that there's a special feeling that you have, when, especially talking to people about the importance of unity, which is that when you have, before this, demonstrations that you go to tend to be segregated, right? They kind of reflect the apartheid that we live in. You have mostly white demonstrations against the war in Iraq, right? You had a lot of demonstrations against police murders, had been a lot of black working people. But here you had Asian, Latin, black, white people that were organized like a fist, that were together. And that's something that I think is the key to what we're trying to talk about here and trying to build here for the future. Finishing up, but we've been involved. When I came back, what it meant to fight back like Ferguson wasn't just to sit and talk and go to demonstrations. Demonstrations are good, but we got to organize. So what we did was, we've been organizing against racist housing. Two of my students, for instance, one of them, her young child was burned. They were trying to boil water to heat their apartment because their landlord had cut off their heat. So they were boiling water, and two of her children were playing, and they spilled boiling water on themselves. And the landlord kept demanding that they pay their rent for the next several months. In another case, in the projects in East New York, another one, my very good friends, her young cousin had a cut, and mold got into it, and has mold proliferating in their system because they had this. Their immunity was only 5 years old. And the doctor had told the family that this kid can't live in this building anymore because it's hazardous to his health. But there's nowhere to go, right? So what next steps forward, right? Fighting back like Ferguson means building support. It means organizing. It means connecting racist police brutality, racist police murders with racist slum housing, right? Racist slum lords. We organized a demonstration. We found this guy's house. We found this guy's office, actually. We organized a demonstration right in front of his building in Hillside Avenue in Queens. And we're going to go to every single one of his properties to speak to the tenants, right? To organize a movement, to organize all of these people to learn that we can fight back, that we have to fight back. It's a question of life and death, right? So what we had in Red Hook here, Long Island College Hospital closed. There are 100,000 people, Black and Latin workers, that went to Long Island College Hospital every single year. The closure of that hospital was a racist, genocidal attack on the people of Red Hook. And yet right now, in those buildings, the EMS workers still can't find the addresses where they're going, because all those addresses that were torn down after Hurricane Sandy, or were never put up in the first place, were in the middle of this complex of 25 buildings that people still die. On the day that Long Island College Hospital closed, one of the first Black EMTs in New York City, her nephew died of an asthma attack because the paramedics could not find this address of where they were. That's racism, right? And that's how it all connects back to what we're talking about here with Ferguson. So what we have to do is, Candace talked about being accountable and I'm finishing up, but being accountable and empowerment. Well, for me, empowerment and being accountable means organizing, right? It means organizing a movement of working people. When we talk about organizing, I'm not talking about we need to build up a new leader or build up someone else to run for office, right? I'm talking about a movement of the people that are sitting in this room. I'm talking about a movement of the people that are hit by this system the hardest, the most viciously, every single day. I'm talking about the people that are here, that were moved by what happened in Ferguson, that want a different kind of world. And that's something that when you were in Ferguson, you could feel it in the air. You could tell there was something different about it there, because people believed that we didn't have to live like this. And that if we don't want to live like this, we have to fight to make it different, to make it better, right? We have to fight. It don't matter if you're Black or white or Asian or Latin. If you're with the movement, then stand with us shoulder to shoulder, then link your arms with us, right? So we need a lot of different people. We need millions of people, as a matter of fact. And what connects all of us together is racism. What connects all of this together is building a major anti-racist movement against anti-immigrant racism, against police brutality, against racist hospital closures, against Jim Crow healthcare. It means organizing against racist slumlords, against Jim Crow education. All of these struggles together are united, right? It don't matter what country you live in, don't matter what borough or what city you live in. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us. So if any of you are interested in all of this, you're not just spectators. We don't just, observe life. Nobody here is a spectator. You will participate in life. And you're being called upon, all of you right now, to pick a side, to stand up and be counted. So I hope to talk afterwards, and hope to see all of you.
Brother Ryan, Professor, I appreciate your chants. Us Baptists tend to do chants on Sundays in church, so that's quite all right. Wonderful.
Check out your church.
Wonderful. To our good friend Bob Patterson, to the members of First Unitarians, to the panelists, Reverend Anna, we've heard a lot of good things about her. First and foremost, I'd like to thank this church for speaking to my spirit for decades at this point with the quotes that you post outside. And I think the quote that's given by Leontine Price is wholly appropriate for today. Accomplishments don't have color. I think one thing that we can engage in as individuals, and whether we belong to groups or organizations, is despite what commentary says, because we have Barack Obama in the White House, a lot of commentaries in America say that we're living in a post-racial society. Nothing could be further from the truth, as we all know. It's just not true. It was Alexis de Tocqueville who came to America in 1831. He wrote Democracy in America. He said two things could essentially and ostensibly dismantle American society. The first thing is the tyranny of the majority, and the second thing is race. And he actually predicted there'd be a civil war in America in 1860, 1861. So we have to highlight the double standards, whether it's in policing, housing. We see a lot of talk about how Bill de Blasio wants to build affordable housing for New Yorkers. 20% of the apartment units are for low income residents. And we see one door for those who pay market rate, We see another door, I think they call it a pour door, for those who are living in the affordable units. We just need to put it on blast. And we're with you to demonstrate and to march on those landlords. So there's a double standard. I think we can engage in a conversation where we can unashamedly speak about race and how it hits us. For one, I'm tired of being pulled over by the cops. Tired of it. So we should be able to be specific, unabashed in our comments. To give an example, if George Clooney at the Golden Globe Awards 2 weeks ago can say "Je suis Charlie Hebdo," which I think is a good thing. I think when the rapper Common or John Legend got up to speak, they should have been able to say specifically "Je suis Eric Garner," "Je suis Kyan Livingston." They were not able to speak specifically about those injustices, and that's an injustice in itself. Neil deGrasse Tyson, director of the Hayden Planetarium, brought up a good point. He says, we would be well served if we learn how to value different types of intelligence. So one type of intelligence is, you go on Jeopardy, you know all the answers. So we value that type of intelligence. Another type of intelligence that we may underestimate, that we may need to engage to tackle these issues, is the intelligence that allows us to solve problems. That's a skill. It's something we need to develop. We underestimate it thoroughly in our society. And as a pastor of a church, I believe that faith is the driving factor behind that type of intelligence. So I'm willing to engage in that dialogue as we try to resolve these problems in America. Housing, education, policing. One thing that we also can do is we can let police officers know that it's all right for them to tell the truth. One thing we have to engage is trying to break the blue wall of silence. I talk to police officers all the time and ask them, well, what do you really think about these instances? What do you really think about? They don't want to talk about it. They feel if they talk about it, they'll be under attack. And one thing that we can do is say, no, it's all right, because we know that in some communities there's more restraint in policing than others. Police know how to restrain themselves in Borough Park and Bay Ridge, but somehow when they get to Bed-Stuy, Brownsville, they don't know what restraint looks like. So these are the matters that we can thoroughly discuss and march, organize, pray, fight, and change.
So I kind of want to speak on more of the historical stance on why Ferguson happened and, connect it back to what's going on now. So I think to get some context on why the physical existence of places like Ferguson is because this extends from a phenomenon called white flight. So after World War II, many white families started moving into the suburbs. And after that, some slightly more affluent black families moved into the same suburbs. Because of racism, the white families that were in these areas all, sort of extricated themselves and took their jobs with them, took any sort of chance and opportunity that any of these black families would have had. So this kind of naturally results in areas, these pockets across America, of high poverty, of high crime. And, that these kinds of situations are, very prime for cops that don't know how to restrain themselves. That comes from this history. So I think in order to understand why Ferguson happened, why Mike Brown got shot, we gotta start to look back at the history of the police. So if we look at after the Civil War, during the antebellum South, the capitalists down there had a really hard time figuring out how they can exploit black people again. Because after slavery, now we can't own them, so how else do we, make money off of them? And naturally, they found a loophole. So the loophole begins with, basically, if you're a criminal, you can be a slave, and that's still true today. If you're arrested under the Constitution, the American Constitution, you can still be used as slave labor. So that's sort of the key in back for these southern capitalists in order to start making money again off black labor. and the first slave patrols come by, and these are the precursors of the now police. So the slave patrol comes around and, you know, basically stops any black person that they see. Basically, you know, like if you look like a strong black man, you're under arrest, and, you know, they trump up the charges based on, oh, if you're on the street for too long, that means you're homeless, therefore that's illegal. So they had these vagrancy laws, which are really parallel to what, you know, Candace was saying about quality of life laws. Basically, if you're anyone that's on the street, anyone who has been really oppressed by capitalism, you are under arrest and then put into a slave camp, put into a working camp. And sort of, this is the history of our modern police force. This is where the police come from, right? This is kind of the purpose of policing. Now we have other, like on the side they stop crime, but mainly they get people to go to jail and, you know, work for capitalists. So the prosecution and the persecution of Black and Latin youth, you know, is still continuing today. And that's something that is very much proliferated because of the history of the United States. And it continues till every sort of moment that we hear about today, every time we hear that someone got shot, every time we hear that, you know, arrests are through the roof of Black and Latin youth, is because of the same reason. So I think that this is where this frustration in Ferguson comes from. So after Mike Brown got shot down, I think it's really, you know, no surprise that the Black working class of Ferguson, after years and years of oppression, you know, come back and are fed up. They're not going to take this anymore, so they really show their power. They really show with their mass movement, with their, you know, illegal, violent mass movement, the things that they needed to do in order, because they understood that the system has nothing for them. That the system we call capitalism has nothing for the Black working class, has nothing for working class people. There's no, you know, there's nothing there for us. So they understood that if they, you know, they try to get someone to vote, they try to go around and do a petition, that's not going to do anything. So I think that, like, the force that they had was the only way that they would be heard, you know, because I think that's the only reason we're still talking about Ferguson is because they were so powerful, because their mass movement did something, because it worked. And like Ryan was saying about how these mass movements are both multiracial and multi-generational. They're not stopped by these sort of barriers, these racial barriers that have been built up for centuries. They're continuing to sort of really understand that it's not possible to work within this system. And I think that the only way that we can ever do anything to change the system is really to understand that these laws that they put in place, they're not coming from a moral place. They're not coming from a place of, you know, like, they don't necessarily make sense. And I think that it's okay that these people broke the law, because the laws that we have in place under capitalism in this country are such that, you know, I think we need to really see that what's legal in America is, you know, like, it's legal to be homeless. It's legal to be hungry. It's legal to die because you can't afford medication. Like, those things are legal. Those things are okay. You know, like, it's okay for a Black guy to get shot down by the police. Like, that's okay under capitalism. But it's not okay to, like, stand up and fight back when one of your brothers gets shot down in the street. Like, you're a vagrant, you're committing illegal crimes when you're fighting back for your family, when you're fighting back for your own life. Like, there's no logic within these laws that we have. So I think it only makes sense to fight back and break these laws. That's not wrong. That's morally right. It's morally right to fight back, to unify, and to really understand that these things that are going on, the only way we can fight back against them, the only way that we could do anything against them, is if we unite and we break the laws. If we, you know, like I don't want to curse, but if we do, you know, we stand up for ourselves. And I don't think that it's really an option anymore. I don't think that we really have many choices, because either we allow them to beat us down further, or we unify, we break some laws, and we rise up as the working class. And I think that this system, the system of capitalism, really thrives off of our oppression, really thrives off of racism, thrives off of sexism. And like, replacing the system is the only way that we can really survive. Because if we continue with capitalism, we're going to get more deaths, obviously. We're going to get the destruction of the earth as far as global warming goes. We're going to get, like, literally catastrophic things are going to happen if we continue with capitalism. So I went down to Ferguson with the Progressive Labor Party, which is a communist party. And I want to tell you about the time that I got arrested, that we went across the so we went out to Ferguson on Florissant Avenue, and we, as a Progressive Labor Party, organized to slowly start to cross the street. So we had our banners, we had our people, and we were ready. And we slowly, step by step, moved towards the yellow line in the middle of the street. At this point, the police told us not to move. But, of course, we did. We slowly went forward. At that point, you can see the excitement in their eyes when they came out to attack us. And they, smashed as many people as they could. They arrested a whole bunch of us. But, nonetheless, the people that stayed behind continued to organize the next day. And the people who were in the neighborhood, who were around us, were all so inspired by our actions and understood that, they don't need to follow these rules. They can't anymore, because the rules are killing them. They understand that the only way that their voices are ever going to be heard is if they do something about it, if they go out on the street and do something. So I think that's something that we kind of inspired in a lot of people in Ferguson. And, these stories are coming back from Ferguson about how sort of ready people are really getting to be part of something much bigger. Ready people are getting to be part of a group that can really cause the liberation of the working class. I think that capitalism is a system that does not deserve to exist. It's a system that destroys us, and the only way we can survive it if we destroy it. As a communist, I believe that communism is the only system that ever tries to really push forward towards giving people what they really need, Because if someone's sick, we're gonna give them fucking medicine, it makes sense. We're not gonna say you didn't work hard enough, so you don't deserve to live, you're too black, so I'm gonna shoot you in the, I think at a certain point, logic should start to take over, and as opposed to all these things that we've learned over our entire lives and over these centuries. So, what I have to say is, basically, the most important part of this is multiracial unity, understanding that our brothers and sisters we have to be next to them. We need to fight with them, and we need to fight for a better world. We need to destroy capitalism and hopefully replace it with communism.
Hello. My name is Anita Neal. My daughter was Kayam Livingston. She was killed at 120 Skimmerhorn in a Brooklyn cell. My daughter had a stomach ache. For 7 hours, she begged. They did nothing. She died. My daughter worked. My daughter was a good girl. She worked. On July 21st, on July 20th, my daughter was arrested for a minor incident, a remote control. They took her from, they claimed my daughter was out. She was at a barbecue. It was her boyfriend's birthday on the 20th. Her birthday was the 29th, the next week. Every year, She celebrates with the boyfriend, so this was a Friday night. My daughter was in the shower. Next you know, 2 officers came. My daughter was in a towel. My mother had an order of protection against her because for some reason now, if you're elderly, you can't argue abuse. That's called abuse. Sorry. Anyway, my daughter was out. She had a few drinks, yes, but on the order of protection it states there's no drinking in the house. But the 2 officers came to my mother's house, smelled alcohol on my daughter. So they assumed that she was drinking. They arrested her. They took her to Kings County Hospital. At Kings County Hospital, they did nothing. They let her lay there. They didn't take a breathalyzer. They didn't take no blood. They questioned her to ask her, can you sign this? You know how you go in the hospital when you have to sign a piece of paper to be released? She told them, she cursed them out. She told them she wasn't signing nothing. She wasn't there. Let the officers do it. They the one that brought her there. It took them from 10 minutes to 12 that night, Friday, all the way up until 10 o'clock in the morning, from Kings County Hospital, from my mother's house at 10 minutes to 12, till Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. They took her to 70 precinct, finally. My daughter called me. My daughter called me at the time when she was arrested to let me know there's 2 officers here to arrest her. And she didn't know why. Then they took her to the 70 precinct. While she was leaving the 70 precinct, they gave her a phone call. I called back the precinct. I spoke to the desk sergeant. They claimed they had a delay. So I thought my daughter was there the whole time. Then they took her to central booking. I spoke to my daughter that afternoon at 1:17 in the afternoon, and I didn't speak to my daughter since. She called me on the phone there, and she said she wasn't going to see the judge. The next time I found out, 2 officers was at my house Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. They told me my daughter died. They said she had a seizure. My daughter never had seizure. My daughter had asthma and colitis. There was nothing wrong with my daughter. When she left, I saw my daughter every day. My daughter would come to my job before she went to work, or on her day off, she would stop by. If she was going shopping, she would let me know, I'm going shopping today, blah, 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 this, that, and whatever. She would bring me a rose. I get nothing now. They claim, after I went upstairs, when I found out, I went straight to Brooklyn Hospital, because that's what they said she was. They gave me a runaround. First, when we got there, me and my other daughter, Shanta, they said, we don't have a key, we need a key. There's a door over on this side. So I figured that's where they had my daughter. So I could see her for the last time. It was a sitting room. Then they told me there's nobody working on the weekend. So they give me the runaround, supervisor this, supervisor that, back and forth, back and forth. I went from one room to the nurse station, to the doctor that saw her. They said they couldn't do anything. It's like, they claimed she didn't die at 120 Skimmerhorn, but they couldn't give me no answers at Brooklyn Hospital. If a person dies right there, they should be laying in a bed there for me to identify my own child, but I couldn't even do that. So they sent me upstairs. They sent me back downstairs. So I got fed up. They claimed nobody's there. I went to central booking myself. I walked from Brooklyn Hospital to central booking. I went in the courtroom. There was court going on. I went to the desk and I said, somebody killed my daughter in here and I want answers. So someone with a white shirt came told me come. They took me upstairs. Me and my other daughter and a couple of my friends came, and we were in a room. So the officers finally, because when they first came to my house, nobody had a picture. They just came and just nothing. So I wanted to make sure this is my child before anything, because they won't let me see her here. So where is she? And finally, they showed me a picture of my daughter. There was her. It was Kaya. They told me the girls, there's 18 other girls, and they'd be an interview. So Shanta, my other daughter, ran into the room in there because she wanted to see for herself. She wanted to hear what they were saying. So I left, and I went back to Brooklyn Hospital. I told them I want to see my daughter. They still giving me to run around, so finally, after 10 minutes, they let me go downstairs. There was a door. They still said they didn't have a key. I said, if my daughter's behind that door, I'm going to get through that door. I'm not going to need a key. Finally, they pulled out, and it was Kaya. I couldn't hold her because they said it was there under investigation. So the next day I got to see my daughter was at her funeral, 7/29, 2013. That's the only time I could get to touch my daughter. So now, we asked for the names. We asked for the tapes. There was 60-something tapes from the time my daughter walked to the door to the time she dropped dead. You can see my daughter dropping dead, and they did nothing. So now, I'm waiting. I have to wait now. Everybody want to question everything, but nobody want to give me no answers. Are they still working or anything at the central booking or not? But I have their names, and they're going to have to face me sooner or later. So that's why on every 21st, since my daughter's death, I have been having rallies for my daughter. And thanks to the people that always stood behind me from this church and the committee, I thank you. I really thank you from my heart, from my heart. I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you.